Here's the thing. So I told you all previously that all of these people are connected. I told you all of these people are friends. Now, Governor Tate already came out and told us about his connections to Sheriff Ledbetter. They're personal friends. This is a small town. It's no different than what was going on with Carmelo Anthony down there in Frisco, Texas. I told you all, it's small town politics is what I call it. It's Southern fried justice. Okay, I keep saying it over and over because it's absolutely true. All of these people are on code and they're sticking together and working together in union and unison and concert. This is what they're doing. Okay, they've pretty much stonewalled people from certain things, and I want you all to pay attention because I created this chart just to show you all how deep it goes. First off, let me show you this picture. Okay, that is Bart's father, that is Governor Tate Reeves, and that is Governor Tate Reeves' wife. Now, I didn't know this until I heard Willie D say that this morning, that in fact, and shout out to Willie D, but I heard him report on this morning and saying that in fact, Elizabeth Edmondson, who is Bart's mother, was actually appointed to the board of Mississippi, to the Mississippi State Board of Health in 2021. Okay, so I want you all to let that sink in. Okay, I want you all to let that sink in. So these people are absolutely, and I also told you all previously that these people they play golf together, they go to brunch together, they go out of town on vacations together. This is what they do. How are we supposed to get a fair assessment and investigation of this trial? How are anyone that had anything to possibly do with Nolan's death, how is anyone going to be brought to justice if in fact they're related or friends to any of these people involved in this nefarious debacle? Okay. Nalin says the Royals are connected too. Love and support, Queen. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. Now let's take a look at this chart because it looks like there's corruption from the bottom down. Okay, that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. Now I'm going to remove this from the screen for just a moment. Hold on. Because I want you all to see this. All of these key players, these are the key players in this situation, and they all have some serious ties. First of all, let's start at the top. You have Governor Tate Reeves, okay, who is personal friends by his own admission to Sheriff Ledbetter. Now, we know that, of course, Sheriff Ledbetter is also friendly with the DA, Angel Myers McElrath. We also know that both of these two are friendly with Judge Ashley Cole. Okay, and then Judge Ashley Cole is married to Dr. Benjamin Hudson, and they are the parent and stepmother of Warren Hudson. Okay, one of the people who was with Nolan on the day that he lost his life. Not to mention, Dr. Benjamin Hudson is involved in not only emergency medicine, but as well as he's the one who deals with people who may have had overdoses. Okay, that's important to note because they said that Nolan's toxicology report, this is what Tap Dancing Tatum's, Rage Tatum said, that Nolan's toxicology report would show, according to someone that he claims is a credible source, that there were illegal substances in his system. Now, I'm not saying Dr. Benjamin Hudson had anything to do with this. I'm just saying I don't put anything past anyone in a small town where they have no intentions but issuing out anything other than Southern fried justice. And that means justice for them and only them, and no one that opposes or speaks to the contrary narrative of them. Now, let's continue. Then we have Elizabeth Edmondson, who is married to Dr. Bart Edmondson Sr., who is the father and mother of Bart Edmondson Jr., who was a friend who was there on the day that Nolan Wells went to the island and came up missing and lost his life, who also are friends with Governor Tate, who Elizabeth Edmondson was appointed to the Mississippi State Board of Health by Governor Tate Reeves. Then we have not only that, the DA, Angel Myers McElrath, tied to a controversial case from 2008 where a young Black teen by the name of Billy Joe Johnson was found dead. And it is believed that the sheriff's deputy who had him in custody at the time is the one who took his life. But nonetheless, they deemed it as accidental and blamed it on the young man himself. Okay? Now, mind you, With all of this being said, we also know that these people are friendly with other big time officials in Ocean Springs and other areas of Mississippi. Okay? Now, then we have Attorney Edward Andrew Pulsick. Okay? Now, Attorney Edward Andrew Pulsick is the attorney for Warren and Morgan Seymour and Jax Piatalo. Now, you may not be able to see them because they're at the very bottom and their pictures are small, but he is also tied to none other than President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, whom he previously worked for his defamation cases. Okay, do y'all see how deep this rabbit hole goes? All of these important people tied to Nolan Wells' case are all connected to people that are even more powerful than them. And let us not forget Stacey Turner, the medical examiner. She's tied to all of these people as well, and we already know her nefarious history. There's many more connections that I could post, but I'm telling you, the chart would take forever. Okay, and I'm very serious about that. Now, this is all important to note, as I said, and here's why. Let's talk about it. Because you see, power rarely operates in isolation. In many communities, especially places where the same families, the same officials, professionals, and business leaders have known one another for years, this influence can absolutely become a network. Okay? A mayor who knows the sheriff. The sheriff may have long-standing relationships with prosecutors. Prosecutors regularly work with judges and law enforcement agencies. Attorneys may socialize or even do business with influential families. Business owners may donate to campaigns of these people running for public office. State officials may have relationships with local political leaders. None of those relationships by themselves prove corruption. In fact, professional relationships are unavoidable in government. But the concern arises when relationships begin influencing decisions that are supposed to be impartial and unbiased. Okay, does that make sense? And let's not forget the fact that aside from all of these alliances and connections, there is another huge one that's known throughout Mississippi, but specifically in Ocean Springs, and that is the United Dixie White Knights of the KKK. Let's not forget how huge they are, and they have said themselves that they are now stronger, larger, and more powerful than ever. And they were down there recruiting in Ocean Springs recently. Okay, please pay attention. Handing out flyers. Okay. Now ask yourselves, how many of these people involved in the Nolan Wells case, these people that are tied and connected and in alliance together, and obviously, in my opinion, working on code, though I can't prove it, I'm absolutely certain that they are, because why wouldn't they? That's how it goes in small towns. But how many of these people may likely could possibly, and we don't know, but I just wonder if any of them or all of them even, or people that they know are in fact involved in the United Dixie White Knights of the KKK? I have several questions. Now, with that all being said, power can absolutely become a network. Imagine that an ordinary citizen finds himself facing a serious problem. Now, he may know one attorney, perhaps a police officer, or even a few community members. But now imagine that someone from a powerful family faces the same problem. You see, that person might be only one telephone call away from an influential attorney. That attorney might know the district attorney. A family member might know the sheriff. Someone else might have access to the mayor, a state legislator, or even the governor's office. And then suddenly, before you know it, the two individuals aren't necessarily entering the system with the same amount of influence. Now, are they? Specifically, if one of those people looks like me. That doesn't automatically mean anyone will break the law, mind you. But access itself, however, can be a tremendous advantage. And we know that those that are the most advantaged in this country are wealthy, elite white folk because they have power, and privilege. Two things that the average Americans don't have, and specifically the ones that look like me. Okay? So please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, here's another thing. If officials have strong relationships with other elected leaders, those allies can publicly defend the official. They can provide political credibility, introduce the official to influential people, help raise campaign money, or discourage political challengers. Again, political alliances are normal, but they're also very powerful. See, the danger appears when loyalty to an ally becomes more important than accountability. And that's usually what tends to happen. You see, when someone is defended simply because they're a part of a certain network, like the Good Old Boys network that I've been telling you all about for years, okay, then legitimate questions can become even harder and more complex to investigate. Police and prosecutors necessarily work together. That's a given. That's part of the criminal justice system. But just imagine allegations involving someone that's personally connected to members of that same system. Okay, please pay attention, because at the end of the day, let's not forget, as I reported to you this morning, DA Angel Myers McElrath was working with the DA's office in 2006 with Tom Lawrence, or Tony Lawrence. And at the end of the day, remember when the case of Billy Joe Johnson came across his desk? She was right there. Then later down the line, when it came back up again, and it was alleged that there was conflicts of interest. Well, who were they talking about? They didn't expressly say that it was her, but who else could it have been at the time? Because they did say that the deputy that was involved in the Billy Joe Johnson case was, in fact, the brother-in-law of the assistant DA. Okay? And we do know that Angel Myers McElrath was the assistant DA. Okay? She worked in that office starting 2006. Billy Joe Johnson's case started in 2008. So please pay attention. Now, with that all being said, it's no wonder that the Congressional Black Caucus has come out and said something. Now they're asking for a federal review.